This is absolutely devastating. General Kelly, particularly Chief of Staff, we're in Crazytown, saying this is the worst job I've ever had. Is he going to be upset by this, or is he just going to brush it off?
Well, General Kelly already issued a statement today indicating this is absolute rubbish, that he's never said anything disparaging about President Trump. General Mattis, the Secretary of Defense, said the same thing, that it's garbage, that anything attributed to him disparaging the president is simply untrue. Press Secretary Sarah Sanders said today that these statements were made by disgruntled employees, former employees who are looking to take the president down. Look, there's been 4 books now. There was Michael Wolff's book, basically debunked completely. There was James Comey's book, turned out to be loaded with lies. There was Omarosa's book. We all know what happened with that. And now there's Bob Woodward, the former Watergate investigator. And frankly, all 4 of these are turning out to be hatchet jobs by feckless profiteers. The American mainstream media, and Piers probably knows President Trump better than anyone in the international media, but the American mainstream media has gone from legitimate journalism to a weaponized propaganda machine hell-bent on taking down President Trump. And Bob Woodward is part of that machine. It's very sad to see, but that's the reality, Susanna.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's interesting you say that. I mean, whenever I see President Trump with his team, and the last time was a few weeks ago on Air Force One here in Britain, I've got to say that I saw General Kelly with him, I saw his press team with him. It was all pretty calm. They all seemed to be getting on very well. And then I read these books, and apparently it's all complete meltdown. So Maclen Zilber, the problem I have with all this is I do think there is a currency, and a very commercially lucrative currency for people in the Trump bashing game. That actually, if you write negative books about him, if you do negative cable news coverage of him, you make tons of money. And that it's leading to kind of ever more hysterical books. Now, I think Bob Woodward's a great reporter, and I think some of the things he has got in this book are clearly concerning. But I don't recognise, when I go into Trump world, the kind of absolute frenzied, backstabbing chaos that I'm seeing in all these books.
Well, with all due respect, Piers, as a political consultant, the face that those of us who work on campaigns and with candidates show when we're talking to reporters like yourself is a very different face from what happens within meetings, which are often a lot more chaotic, a lot more hectic than they're likely to show to the outside world. Look, I think that we need to wait until this book is released before we can start calling it a hatchet job. The reality is that Bob Woodward is a national treasure. This is not Omarosa Manigault. This is not someone making a quick cash grab. This is someone who has written very well-regarded books, all of which have stood the test of time, and who revealed the Watergate scandal itself in large part early on in his career. I mean, certainly there are questions about using unnamed sources, but Woodward says that he has hundreds of hours of tapes, and so far there has not been one documented case in which one of the things that he says happened is proven to not happen.
Maclen Zilber, just to put the point of David Wohl to you, if General Kelly, the Chief of Staff, is described as saying, we're in Crazytown, this is the worst job I've ever had, that's in the book, but then goes on the record and says that's absolute rubbish, do we believe him?
I hope that General Kelly keeps denying that he says this. I hope General Mattis keeps denying that he's saying this, because from what the book describes, it sounds like they are doing everything that they can to keep us out of tumult and chaos. And if they have to say a few lies on the record to keep their current job, then God bless them. Let's have them stay in there and keep us out of World War III.
David, well, for those of us who don't despise everything Trump ever says or does, he makes life quite difficult, doesn't he? Because of his very inflammatory presidential style, particularly with his tweeting, particularly with the rhetoric that comes with a lot of stuff. If you took that out, I don't think he'd be anything like as divisive as he is. But you can't take it out. Do you think he should moderate as he settles in now to his presidency? Do you think he should moderate some of his language? Is that not just constantly creating an impression of open warfare everywhere?
Well, Piers, if he takes it out, he won't be Donald Trump, as you well know. He was elected because he's the sort of the non-politically correct candidate who turned into a guy who just no holds barred, took everything over and promised he would make America great again. This is something really critically important about him, and I don't think he should change one bit. Remember something. When he declared his candidacy, the media, the mainstream media, declared war on him. He sees this as a sort of blood sport, if you will. They hit him back. They hit him. He hits back twice as hard. That's not going to change. He sees this sort of fake news tsunami that hits him as something that isn't going away, and there's a part of him that actually enjoys fighting it. But when you get people like Bob Woodward, and remember something, this is critical. If Richard Nixon had been a Democrat, we would never have heard the word Watergate. Bob Woodward is a biased Democrat reporter who's going after Trump because of who Trump is, not because there's a legitimate story.
Okay.
And these people who have fed him this garbage
he's a very experienced, award-winning investigative journalist.
And it's going to turn out to be...
Chaps, we've got to leave it. We've got to leave it there.
Also, Democrat leaning.
We've got to leave it there, unfortunately. Look, it's going to rumble on. It's the latest book scandal. That's book number 4, I make it. We've only been in the presidency for a year and a half. It's exhausting following Donald Trump
Imagine
and all these
working for
shenanigans. But anyway, we appreciate you both coming on.
Piers, you've got to write a book. Piers, you've got to write a book.
I'm going to have to do a book.
Okay.
Why not? I may as well cash in. Everybody else is. Maclen Zilber and David Wohl, thank you both very much indeed.